So I want to ask everyone a question. Can you really think of anything significant that has changed in the Divas division in the last 3 years? Let's face it, wrestling today is exactly the same show that it was 3 years ago. All the main eventers are still main eventers, all the mid-carders are still mid-carders, and all the jobbers are still jobbers. The only difference might be a face or heel turn here or there, but in general, wrestling has just been spinning its wheels for the last 3 years. Who were the top stars hogging all of the TV time 3 years ago? The Four Horsewomen, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, and Nia Jax. Now I ask, who's in the title picture right now? Who do you think is next in line for a title run? There's your problem. Becky and Bayley have been champions for over a year, and it's not because they don't think there's anyone better that can take the belts from them. It's just that WWE literally don't know who they want to dethrone them. This is what they've done with the division for years, is they have one person hold on the belt forever to the point where fans get sick of seeing them until they finally pick the star that they want to end the title reign, and then they become the unstoppable champion until the next one. And now you see how much the division is suffering as a result. Both Becky Lynch and Charlotte are going to be out of action for a while. These are two of the 3 divas that they've been revolving the division around for the last couple of years. And so now that neither of them is around anymore, you can see just how much they're scrambling to come up with a plan because they don't have anyone credible that can fill that void in the meantime. Even with Asuka as champion, you can tell that's not what WWE wanted right now, and therefore she's not being booked like a champion. Instead, WWE just defaulted back to having Bayley and Sasha Banks take over the entire division. Now, usually this is where you could argue about the same divas hogging the spotlight, but I actually think this is probably the best thing the division has going for it right now. On top of them being more entertaining as a team than they ever were as single stars, let's be honest, the tag belts have been irrelevant since WrestleMania last year, so if anything, this does a great job of reviving interest in the entire division. Now, instead of just being the filler title like it always has been, it feels like the belts matter because they're on 2 major stars as part of a major storyline. Especially with Bayley as a SmackDown champion right now. That just creates a whole nother night dynamic to where the tag division is also the main event. So that just helps elevate everyone. What are your thoughts on Sasha Banks? I've actually always been a fan. She pretty much personifies every quality that I like in a diva. I think the only times that I've ever really ranted about her was just in general when I was complaining about the Horsewoman, but that's about it. And it actually seems like nowadays, those complaints are almost invalid since they've practically done nothing with her the last 3 years. That's kind of crazy how she's pretty much become the Marty Jannetty of the Horsewomen. All the other Horsewomen have had year-long title reigns, while her longest title reign was like a month, and that was 3 years ago. Even her tag title reign didn't last 2 months. So it's a really weird dynamic because she's always been presented as a star, but she has never been booked like one. Maybe that'll change once she wins the title from Bayley, but we'll see. How would you feel about an AJ Lee return? I think there's a lot of really interesting things that they could do with an AJ Lee return. A feud against Bayley would probably be at the top of that list. I can already tell though that regardless how she returns, I'm pretty sure she's going to be promoted as the pioneer of the Divas division. I could see that being the main selling point of all her feuds against their Horsewomen, which I'd actually be into just to hear any one of them bury her the way she buried the Divas division. I'd probably be really conflicted in a feud between her and Charlotte because I probably prefer AJ over Charlotte, but it'd also be pretty funny to see Charlotte bury her, so who knows. There's also the feuds that she could have against any of the total divas to prove that they're all better than her. Or she could just go to NXT and try to help elevate them. That's one thing NXT hasn't really had since Asuka left, is a credible star that can make that division. They have a lot of potential, but let's be real. There has not been any new stars created in that division since 2016. So that's where AJ might be good in, since she's always tried to help get the NXT division over. Why do you hate AJ Lee and her fans? I've tried to be clear in distinguishing between fans and smarks. If you're just a fan who's happy to express your fandom and open to cool debates, then you're cool. But I truly believe that the worst people in the entire world are the smarks that hated everyone in the entire division except AJ. And I have two examples to prove my point. The Raw after WrestleMania 31, where the entire crowd made sexist chants for every diva except AJ, and the 2015 Paris terrorist attacks. So the Bellas were in Paris during the attacks, so obviously their fans were concerned because that's what every rational person thinks during a tragedy is, holy crap, I know someone in that area, I hope they're okay. But apparently that pissed off AJ Smark so much that they started attacking anyone who sent prayers to the Bellas. Think about that. In the middle of a terrorist attack, with people's lives at risk, they still could not put aside their stupid wrestling feud. That's the kind of people they are. They're so delusional that they value wrestling storylines over human life. There's just no way around that. They're scumbags. They are the lowest piece of human garbage in the entire world, and they don't deserve any respect. So that's always been my main gripe with AJ. It's not so much her, but just the fact that she basically inspired the incel movement in WWE. She got a bunch of pissed off virgins to believe that it was okay to hate women for not sleeping with them. Like legitimately, not even just their characters, these whiny, obsessed psychopaths literally hated all the Total Divas as human beings. And then they have the nerve to pretend to be offended at Alexa Bliss jokes. So I guess that's one thing that I do hate about AJ herself is how she was basically just a smark. Even in interviews, all she did was complain about her coworkers. I don't think she ever said one positive thing about any of them after that promo, which just makes me think that although talent isn't sexually transmitted, a bitchy attitude just might be. What are your thoughts on Charlotte saying that she wants to compete for the WWE title? Maybe not the WWE title, but honestly, I'd actually be interested in seeing her transition into the mid-card. I mean, why not? It's not like there's any good mid-carders left nowadays. Charlotte might actually be the biggest star in the mid-card right now if she were to go in there. And there's a chance that she could prove just how good she really is if she's able to hang in there with the guys. The best part about it is it would give the Divas division a break from her. And even in that case, it might actually even make some Charlotte haters realize that the division isn't the same without her. It's better. So when she comes back from her injury, I think she should make a surprise return by challenging whoever the US champion is. But more than likely, she's just going to pick up where she left off and continue going until she's a 16-time champion. Speaking of overpushed second-generation divas, Tessa Blanchard was just fired for refusing to do any work for TNA. She apparently thought that she was too good to even do interviews via FaceTime. Now, I've seen some mixed reactions to this. Apparently, Tessa Blanchard really is just a spoiled Randy Orton backstage, but some people think that she's earned that right because of how good she is. Now, I'm not sure because, yes, she has proven that as TNA champion, she is good enough to hang with some of the best in TNA, although this is TNA in 2020 where their best aren't even as good as any of the Aces and Eights guys, but she has managed to make a name for herself nonetheless. But let's not forget, she was a jobber in NXT. TNA is the only company that would have made her a main eventer, and it's thanks to those chances that she became the star she is today. So the fact that she has the nerve to get an ego like that after everything they did for her, it just makes me want to see her come back to WWE just so they can make her a jobber again to teach her that it doesn't matter how good you think you are, you're only as big as the company wants you to be. Another star that's kind of been open about using TNA as a stepping stone is the legendary Deona Pizza. Now, it makes sense. TNA has been dead since they got kicked off Spike TV, so the only reason anyone wants to be there is just to get enough good footage of themselves that they can mail to other companies. That's just a fact. So props to Deona Pizza for having the guts to say it. But it does kind of highlight just how much wasted potential that WWE has on their roster right now. Deona Pizza always had the overall tools to be a star, but there was never really any room for her to do that in the WWE because the roster is so stacked right now that there's at least 10 different divas that could all be champions tomorrow, but not enough TV time to push all of them. But that ties into my next question. What stars have the most potential on the main roster and NXT? I think WWE is really high on Liv Morgan and Mandy Rose. The problem is they don't want either of them in the title picture yet, so they're just kind of stalling until then, which isn't a bad thing since you should take time to build stars before you throw them in the main event. But it doesn't even seem like they're really building them. It seems like they're just keeping them on TV so people don't forget who they are until they figure out how they're going to actually push them. The problem with that is that the longer you waste time, the more momentum they start to lose until fans stop caring. Let's not forget, Lacey Evans and Lana were both the hottest divas in the division at one point before WWE let their momentum die down. There's a lot of divas with potential right now, but the issue is that with the way WWE has been doing things, they just end up wasting that potential until it's too late. As for NXT, I think they're really high on Aaliyah, as am I, but I'm pretty biased because I still remember Chick Kick 21. I do think it's kind of funny how she's kind of come full circle right now with this storyline of her falling for a pedo twice her age. But either way, I do think she's got potential to be as good of a heel as Alexa Bliss. She's got a likability factor to be a good face too, but I think her heel potential is far greater than her face potential. What are your thoughts on WWE's treatment of Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke? In Dana Brooke's case, I'm just disappointed because it seems like they've just completely ruined her to the point where she's never going to be able to get over jobber status now. Even when they teased her winning the Money in the Bank, it didn't feel like it would have even mattered because even if she did win the title at this point, it's not going to salvage her career. That's how badly WWE has treated Dana Brooke over the years. As for Mandy Rose, I think they've been doing just fine with her. The Otis storyline got so over that they kind of had to put them together. I do think that in the end, Mandy's just going to turn heel on Otis and cost him the title, which is probably the best direction that she can go in since she has a lot more heel potential than as a face, and that would set her up perfectly to be a top heel. Thoughts on Sonya Devilles' new character? I can't really tell what her character is supposed to be. Seems like she's supposed to be going for an obsessed Mickie James type of thing, but she wears suits and talks like Chris Jericho, and she still wrestles like an MMA fighter. So it's all over the place right now. The only thing I know for sure is that she hates Mandy Rose, so unless she's going to be feuding with Mandy Rose the rest of her career, then she's got to do a better job at establishing exactly what her character is. Although, now that I think about it, a wrestler whose gimmick is that they hate another wrestler would actually be a pretty funny gimmick. Like, you could have her start feuds with random divas, but she thinks all of them are Mandy Rose and pretends that each feud is a continuation of the Mandy feud. Yeah, you know what? On second thought, make that her gimmick. What are your thoughts on Tamina finally getting a character? You know what? I think I might actually get into this gimmick. It kind of reminds me of the Samuel Shaw gimmick from TNA, which is awesome. Psycho gimmicks are always some of my favorites in the WWE. And pretty much my biggest gripe with Tamina has always just been that he had no character. There were a few instances where he kind of showed signs of potentially being a decent comedy character, but that's about it. So if this gimmick ends up being just as entertaining, then I might actually change both my opinion and my pronouns on Tamina. Who are your current favorites on the main roster and on NXT? So let me just give you my fave 5. The obvious ones, if you've been watching this channel, are Alexa Bliss, Dana Brooke, and Mandy Rose. Guess what they all have in common? Yep, you guessed it, NXT. I guess I'm a smart now, I must be. But Liv Morgan is also starting to climb up there as well. I think her new gimmick has really done favors for her. And I also think the Iconics are some of the most fun characters in the division right now, even though they're basically just an Aussie Lake Cole, although I would say they're even better than Lake Cole ever was. But as for NXT, I don't watch enough of it to be able to judge properly, but the ones that I'm most interested right now in are Aaliyah, Santana Garrett, and Toni Storm. But that just about does it for this week. I know I skipped over a few questions, but I'm actually still not finished editing this video as of 5 this morning, and I don't want to delay this video for another 2 years like the Christmas special, so I'll get into them in the next video.
But there you have it. Thanks to everyone who never really forgot about this series that's been asking for its return. I know I don't really respond to comments that much, but I do read all of them, and it really means a lot that you guys still have me in your thoughts after all this time, and that you still look forward to my lousy wrestling videos. I'm hoping to make a return on a regular basis from here on out, but usually we always say that right before disappearing, so we'll see. I can only promise for now. Anyway, this has been MTO with the MTOmarReviews saying yada yada yada, blah blah blah.